What is up, everybody? This is iBreak Cards, and welcome back to another episode of Cardboard Talks. Today, we've got an awesome interview with one collector's journey to reach 1,000,000 Cubs cards. And as per usual, when we do a interview, I'm going to keep this beginning part rather brief. We're going to do our typical what I'm up to in the hobby, what is releasing, and then we're just gonna hop on into the interview. Nothing really interesting per se happening on Twitter here recently, so I figured we'll skip that this week, come back to it maybe next week. This week, recently, I've been working on pricing, organizing, and getting ready for a card show. This week, I am doing the 417 Card Show in Springfield, Missouri, over on Battlefield Road, Friday and Saturday. I plan to have something on my table to just kind of say who I am, and if you guys follow the channel, please stop by and just say hey. It's always nice to, hear people who visit, who have watched the stuff, and I love the support that you guys bring me, and maybe, who knows, we can make a deal. One thing I am doing is unfortunately splitting a table. Down the road, I'll be getting my own, maybe 2 tables, so we can do grab bags, so we can do games, so we can do a case or two, and so on and so forth. Something I do want to do for the show is film content. One thing that makes me nervous as a content creator is I don't want to shove a camera into people's faces, but I also want people to get the experience that I'm having. I want to have full transparency, and I kind of want to come into, the before and after. Here's how we did day 1, here's how we did day 2. I want to do this because a lot of people just go to card shows and not a lot are vendors. I'll be doing a lot of different shows with my buddy Chris in the next month, roughly, not in our typical area that we're used to, which is in the Springfield surrounding area. So that is something we look forward to. And I just kind of want you guys to see what it's like for me, and then also what the show is like. Again, with that full transparency, here's how much tables were. Here was day 1, here was day 2, etc., etc. I'm thinking that will be a video I put out next week, maybe Tuesday or Thursday, depending on the time I have to edit and so forth, as I've started to get very busy with many different things here recently. Otherwise, I honestly look very much forward to that show. By the time this releases, it'll be the next day. Today is Wednesday, so I've kind of put this Cardboard Talks off, not necessarily to the last minute, but could have definitely filmed it and released it sooner. Regardless, you guys know I love these videos where I just kind of get to sit here, we get to do the interviews, and we have a good time. But that's kind of what I've been up to here recently, just, trying to find collections, trying to get deals, do something to where I can make money, but still enjoy the hobby and enjoy the people in it. The break that I'm working on also is something very exciting. It has been 2 weeks since it's been up, but in my honest opinion, I just need to post it more, and we can probably sell it out sooner. I also want to give people a chance at the show to also buy into it and see where we can go from there. Our products coming out for the next week, and this is according to Cardboard Connection. Some of these may already be out. I could be wrong. That was my oven. My apologies. Is 2023 Leaf Best of Baseball, 2023 Bowman Mega Box Baseball, which is exciting even though the Drew Jones was pulled. And if I'm the person that pulls it, I sell it for that $250,000 right now, as soon as possible. Donruss Optic Football, that'll be huge as always. Impeccable Basketball, NBL National Baseball League, that is a Topps product. Topps Star OB1. And then you've also got Leaf Pearl Multisport and Onyx Vintage Competitors Multisport. And as someone who's started to open the Leaf products a little bit more, I'm kind of starting to really like a lot of the stuff they do. Now, with that being said, guys, again, I hope you do enjoy this interview. If you do have Cubs cards, feel free to reach out to the individual I worked with, as they do straight up trades for your favorite teams, for his favorite team. And it's just phenomenal to hear the story behind why he chose to collect the Cubs, what experiences he's had, and I was in awe that he even got to go to a card show with a professional league baseball player. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening as always. I hope you enjoyed the interview. What is up, everybody? This is the iBreak Cards, and I'm here with Bo, who is on just a legendary calling to collect 1,000,000 Cubs cards, which is far more than I think any super collector has probably ever done for any sport, team, player, or anything. And before I ask, of course, what got you to start this journey, I want to ask what I ask a lot of people, which is what is your earliest just like collecting sport card pack opening memory when it comes to things like this?
You know, I remember holding, I was born in 1982. I remember the first cards I remember seeing as a kid were 1986 Topps football, the beautiful green borders. But I don't recall where they came from, how I got them, anything like that. The first pack I remember opening was in 1988. But what really sucked me in was in 1989, my mom sent in like enough UPC codes, coupons from one of the cereal brands. And I think if you sent so many in, you received a Topps complete team set of your favorite team. Of course, mine was the Chicago Cubs. I waited 6 to 8 weeks. It came in the mail. I was so excited to rip into that team set of 89 Topps. And that was when I was sucked into baseball cards and haven't looked back.
Now, I assume you've been a Cubs fan for a long time. I've been a Cardinals fan, Chiefs fan because of my dad. Did you have family that got you into the Cubs, or was it kind of like a I got myself into it kind of situation?
It was totally influenced by family and friends. I grew up about 2 hours from Chicago. Uh, Grew up around a lot of sports, diehards, especially when it comes to Chicago teams. So that. It was pretty ingrained in me from an early age. The Bears were in the Super Bowl. I was 4 years old, and I have just faint memories. The pretty young age to have any memories, but I have faint memories of the Super Bowl in 1980. January of '86, and then the Van Halen jump was the theme song for the Cubs
Yeah.
following the '84 team in the ensuing years. So that's always the voices of Harry Carey and Steve Stone. The voices of my childhood. So I was around it a lot, just from friends and family, and that's what it's kind of it just stuck with me.
See, and I was a 90s kid. So growing up, the only time I ever really got to go somewhere with card stuff, they had quit putting them in, cereal or in packaging. By then they were definitely done with doing like cigarettes and things like that. So I got all mine every week when I would have a basketball game and my dad would take me to Walmart for like a Gatorade and I could get one pack of cards. So that's how I personally got started. But I love that like your family got into it. My family, my dad is a big Chiefs fan. My brother-in-law's a Chiefs fan. My fiance is now a Chiefs fan and converted to a Cardinals fan. She was a Royals fan. So I'm like, you got to come over to the winning ways so you can understand. I mean, we won 18-1 last night. So it's feeling a little bit better after that 9 game skid. But it's so exciting to, hear that family is getting people not just into sports, not just into teams, but into the hobby. And it does carry on because even my dad's dad was a Chiefs fan. He remembers watching the longest game in NFL history, which we lost, of course, on Christmas Day. And it just continues down the line. If I think my kids are anything but Chiefs fans, we might have some problems. Who knows? They definitely can't be Raiders fans though. So we'll just say that. Now I have to ask because you started with holding some cards. You started with this set from the cereal box UPCs, and it probably just started to snowball like it did for me. Oh, I can go to more places than just Walmart to get stuff. Oh, I can buy stuff online, and now I have shelves on shelves full of stuff. What exactly made it to the point to where you became not just a collector, but somebody who was going to start to really piece together this massive collection?
I think it was almost immediate. Back in the late '80s, early '90s, when I discovered cards, that was like the height of the baseball card boom, trading card boom. They were everywhere. We could get packs of cards anywhere, everywhere. I grew up in a really small town of 900 residents. We had a small IGA grocery store, and they had a lot of cards there. And it wasn't just baseball cards, but I discovered this is at the time of Yo MTV Raps cards were coming out, New Kids on the Block cards, Dick Tracy, movie cards, all of this, wrestling cards. That I was a Hulkamaniac. So all of these different packs of cards were at my local IGA. So it went from just opening a pack of 88 Donruss, 88 Tops, baseball and football cards to all of a sudden there's all of these different cards. My favorite TV shows and movies, and so it just kind of it was just overwhelming, and I wanted to collect everything that I could get my hands on. So it was almost instant that I discovered cards, started opening packs, to all of a sudden just absolutely going 100% into wanting to collect it all.
Right. And I mean, I personally started it like Pokemon and then Yu-Gi-Oh! And quickly graduated to sports cards right away. And my dad always wanted me to collect baseball. I wanted football. And so those are the two things I majorly collect. Now I have to ask, how long ago did you decide I'm gonna do the million? I'm gonna go for 1 million Cubs cards.
December of 2017. So it's been what, five? Yeah, over a little over 5 years.
Yeah.
That's when I officially decided I'm gonna collect a million Cubs cards, and it all started. You see behind me, I've got just boxes upon boxes upon boxes. I have about 3 million total cards right now. At the time, I had about a million, and a lot of them were like 80s and 90s. Not really worth anything. Nobody wants them. I can't sell them. It's hard to trade them. So I decided when I sort through, if I get 100,000 cards here or 50,000 cards there, I always pull the Cubs cards out. It's like I don't care about the rest of them, but I'll keep the Cubs no matter if I have 75 of this copy or not. I always set the Cubs aside. So I figured people love numbers and chasing goals and following people that chase numbers and goals. So I'm like, well, since I have a million cards that I don't really want, maybe I can trade them. And throughout my card collecting days, I've done team trades where I'll send you 1,000 Cardinal cards. You send me 1,000 Cubs cards. So I'd been doing that for, off and on for 10, 15 years, and decided there's probably enough people out there that I can, slowly, gain some momentum, and 1 million is kind of a nice big number that probably hasn't been done from this point of view, collecting a team or anything like that. So that's kind of how it was all born, and it really took off much faster than I expected to.
And I assume this isn't all of it because I see monster boxes, I see, one row boxes. So I'm sure you've got a lot more down there with you other than in this corner, it looks like. I mean, I see just boxes upon boxes that I'm sure a lot of people would love to dive into and just look at. Do you have it organized in any certain way, or is it just these are Cubs?
Fortunately and unfortunately, no, it's not organized whatsoever. Straight behind me is most of the Cubs, but there's several boxes, and I've got another storage room, that's pretty full with cards. I've got a closet next to me that is about 8 feet wide, and it goes about 12 feet deep, and it's stacked probably 7 or 8 feet tall of boxes upon boxes. And then this entire room is filled with cards as well. Unfortunately, it's not organized, and that's one thing where every once in a while I'll have somebody, hey, I need a 1985 Donruss Ryne Sandberg. And it's like I probably have 200 of those, but finding them, and it's like, yeah, you need it, you can have it if I find it, and that's the hard part.
Right.
But for me, I love surprises. So I'll go through a box, and there may be 3 rows of a 4-row box filled with 1991 Fleer, and then the fourth row is pre-war tobacco cards and vintage and stuff that I forgot I have picked up along the way. So I like those surprises, like, oh, I forgot I had this, and it's like almost like a mail day all over again.
Right. And I saw recently you were at a card show, and I'm fairly new to those myself. I'm getting into them more. Now, when you go to card shows, I see you have this massive board where you have your I'm going for a million goal, and you hit over 900,000 not long ago. Do you know your number you're at right now off the top of your head?
So I updated the sign. It's I think I put 900,127. Full disclosure, I just pulled that number out of thin air. It is approximately 900,127. So my official count right now is 800. Let me I keep it on my Twitter bio and I keep it on a notepad in my phone.
I
It's
have to. I was gonna say I have to.
888,741. But but I have the reason I put 900,000, I have about 12,000 in boxes that I haven't opened from mail day. So I have like two large flat rate boxes. I have another large box, and then I have just a bunch of random Cubs that I haven't counted. So it may be 900, 1,000, 900, 2,000 by now, but it's somewhere around the 900,000 mark.
And you count those one by one.
I do. The only
Yeah.
time I haven't counted one by one, I actually twice. I did a trade at a big Chicago show about 3 years ago, and it was what would it have been? 35,000 cards, and it was I think 5,000 count box, 5,000 count boxes. So I just instead of counting 35,000 in one whack, I just decided there's approximately 5,000 cards in each of these boxes. They're not penny sleeve, they're junk wax, so they're the thinner stock. You can
Right.
legit fit 5,000. So I estimated 35,000. And then I did that a second time with like a 50 or 60,000 card trade. And I just basically, if it's a 3,200 count box, it's 3,200. 5,000, a 5 row box, 5,000. So only twice have I not actually counted, but that's a common question. Like, well, how do you count all of those?
I mean,
But it's
yeah,
really
yeah,
easy.
it's time
It's
consuming.
really easy because you do it as they come in. So it's not like I'm
Right.
counting 900,000 cards at one time, but if I get a box today of 200 cards, I just add 200 to the total.
Now I have to ask, once you hit your million, what is the next step? Is the journey over? Are you gonna organize it all? What's the plan?
The journey is never ending. So I will not go for 2 million Cubs cards. That's out of the question. That's not going to happen. But I will continue collecting Cubs cards. I'll fill in holes. There's a lot of pre-war and vintage that I still need to pick up, oddball, especially oddball vintage. As new sets come out, I'll still, especially I love Bowman products, so I'll still chase Bowman and some of the autos and some of those cards. So every new set that comes out, I'll still chase Cubs cards and still fill in holes from other sets that I need. But yeah, organization's one thing that I really because I love sharing odd stats. Like I have 1,227 copies of a 1978 Topps Rick Russell card. I love throwing that, and it also gets a lot of steam on social media as well because it's not everybody has 1,200 copies of any card, just in their
Right.
collection. So that always gets, some clicks on social media. So and I love stats and numbers. And so to have a spreadsheet, this is my like dream, which sounds super nerdy. But my dream is to have this like huge spreadsheet with like, oh, Scott Sanderson, I have 32,000 Scott Sanderson cards. And, the most common one is 1987 Topps. I have 1,400. So that's ultimately a goal that I'd like to get to in terms of organization. So I should have been doing that a little more along the way as opposed to waiting until I hit a million. But
Right.
here I am.
Well, and that's how collecting goes because I didn't even have 5,000 count box. I was putting it all in these three-tiered drawers I was getting from Walmart for like, at the time, they're like $10 a piece. Now they're like 25 until I got a Beckett in one day and I was like, oh, that Mike Trout like rookie looks really familiar. I got to dig through my 9, 12 drawers of cards. And then after that, it was, I might as well organize these. I need a shelf. I need boxes. I need labels. I need note cards. And of course, it does help. But since you have over 900,000 cards, there's got to be like a top 1, 3, 5 that really sticks out to you because there's so many legends of the game from the Cubs. And I'm even calling Derek Lee like a legend. I pulled his autograph over this summer, and it took me back to those days where I was like, all right, cleanup hitter, home run, always the guy I had ready to rock. But I didn't know if you had a favorite or top 3 or 5.
I definitely have some some favorites in my collection. Um, I have an Ernie Banks rookie, and there's some great stories that go. And I think with my collection, it's more, a lot of my Cubs cards are just Cubs cards because there's no real story like, oh, I bought it on eBay, or, oh, I picked this up at a card show. At least with a card show, I guess there's somewhat like, oh, I remember I got that at, whatever show it was. Um, but the ones with stories have the most, they're the most meaningful. I have a 1954 Topps Ernie Banks rookie, a really unique story. I did a lot more blogging early on, the first couple of years of my quest, and I had at one point done a top 10 most wanted Cubs cards list for my collection. And of course, at the time I did not have the Ernie Banks rookie card. And if you have a million card collection of Cubs, you have to have an Ernie Banks rookie card. And so somebody saw this blog, who he lived in Ohio, and his dad had just passed away. And his dad had a collection, grew up, in the 50s, had a collection of the 50s cards. There was an Ernie Banks rookie card in there. And it just so happened, I think it might've been on the day of his father's funeral. He read my blog and he goes, my dad would want that card to go into a collection as meaningful as the 1 million Cubs collection. And so he, shot me a message on Twitter. Hey, there's a package. And I think I probably sat on the box unopened for like a week. And he followed up. He's like, hey, did you get that box? I'm like, yeah, I gotta get it open. Cause I had no idea, I'm thinking there's going to be 1987 Topps Scott Sandersons inside. And I opened it up and I'm like, I did like a triple take. Like, this is an Ernie Banks. This is real. This is like an authentic Ernie Banks rookie card. And then so we worked out a trade, and he told me the background, and so that has a lot of meaning. And I have a Javier Baez, is one of my all-time favorite Cubs players, a first Bowman Chrome auto that a bunch of friends through social media picked up for me around Christmas time last year. So those are some of the ones, the cards that have stories and that are more meaningful. And what I found in my collection of cards is there's not too many of those. I'm gifted a lot of Cubs cards, and I trade for a lot, but at the end of the day, there's so many that are eBay purchase, card show purchase, or whatever. There's not many stories, but I do have a autographed baseball collection. And most of them are in person that I get at games, Cubs convention, spring training, and all that. And so what I like about that, when I put those on display, there's a story that goes along with most of those. So I think with my card collection, my favorites aren't necessarily the most valuable or the most famous cards, but they're the ones with the best stories behind them.
And it seems like you've gotten to meet some players doing these shows and everything. I have to ask, like, is there a most memorable experience you personally have from a Cubby, a former player, current player who's came up to you and gone, you're crazy, or, anything like that?
Several. I'm still like a big fanboy when it comes to the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs are like, just on another level for me. I've been a diehard, huge Cubs fan my entire life. So anybody who's ever put on a Cubs uniform, I like idolize. And so every Cub that I've met, and so it's still surprising when I hear players, oh, I've heard about you. You're the 1 million Cubs guy. And so to hear that coming from like an actual Cub player or former Cubs player is pretty unique. I've actually become really good friends with Ethan Roberts, who's a pitcher for the Cubs. And so when I went to spring training this past spring, we went to a card show together and ran into a former Cub, Augie Ojeda. The show promoter's like, hey, there's a former Cub walking. Can you pick him out? And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm with a current Cubs player. And it turns out they were at the same table. Ethan and Augie Ojeda were at the same table, and neither of them knew. And I'm like, hey, by the way, this is Ethan. He's a pitcher for the Cubs. Ethan, this is Augie, former Cub player. So we were driving back after the show. Ethan's like, man, that guy was super cool. Like, and he's looking him up on his phone, like looking his stats up on his phone. He's like, I've got to buy a card. So in my car on the way back to the hotel, he's on eBay buying an Augie Ojeda card because he's just a diehard collector. He loves cards too. And so you get to know some of these players as people and not just guys in a uniform, playing a game. So there's so many. That's probably the coolest one, just because I have that personal connection. We become really good friends. But almost every time I meet a Cubs player, it's almost like, I get that fanboy experience going.
Yep, I will never outgrow it. I think of myself like the day I got to skip school and go meet Chiefs players. This was back in the Matt Castle, Dwayne Bowe era where we were just terrible. And every single time they're like, "What's your name?" It was like a squeaky voice coming out of my mouth because I was like, "This is the celebrity. I watch you on TV.
Right.
I'm nothing compared to you. You're a professional athlete. You're worth millions and millions of dollars." But like, yeah, it's the same feeling. I've met Hall of Famers. I've met minor major leaguers. I've gotten to go on fields and have great experiences. I got to go in the booth at a Chiefs game during halftime and talk to Len Dawson. I mean, and I will still revert back to this like childlike wonder of like, oh my gosh, it's so and so. I remember when they did this. And then it's like, you don't want to ask. Do you remember when you caught that one? Yes, I was there. I was
Right,
there.
right.
So it's crazy. And it's so wonderful at the same time that you're able to get closer to these players. I got to meet and know Matt Strom before he blew up, started his channel and everything. And I got to know a Royals reliever that collects and has a channel as well. And getting to talk with those players, do interviews with those players, they're people at the end of the day. And that's just what you got
Absolutely.
to remind yourself, which is so hard to do, but it's awesome at the same time. In all honesty, I have no other questions, but I am going to throw in 100 cards for you to add to your
Woo.
stack. Put it in any box you want. I don't care. I didn't collect a lot of baseball growing up, but 2011, Mike Trout's rookie year, I thought that would be fun. And then in, I think it was 2012 or 11, they added in Abraham Lincoln SP cards. I don't know if you ever heard about those or not, or if you have any, but there's a card, it's horizontal with a Cubs player catching a ball on the warning track, and there's a sign behind him where it just looks like it's just bulbs of black or white or yellow, and it's just got words flashing. It's right there by the, all the grass, or not grass, the vines on the wall and everything. And there's just Abraham Lincoln illuminated on that sign. And
Really?
last I heard, those are extremely rare cards. And I only knew about that because I used to subscribe to the Beckett magazines. So I thought having, both of those would be great. Even as being a Cardinals fan, I think 1 year to go to Wrigley would be insane. But I want that ivy on the wall when I go. I don't
Oh
like
yeah.
turning on. I don't like turning on the TV, and I'm like, oh, that's really brown looking. But
Yeah. And it can be
it's
cold when it's still brown. It's really cold.
yeah, and it's you can't have it's almost one without the other. Wrigley is known for that, just like how the
Absolutely.
Cardinal Stadium is known for having the arch, onto the field. So, and if I'm being honest, I might honestly rather go to Wrigley than Yankee Stadium, but that's just me. There's history everywhere with those three teams, and honestly, I hope these find a decent place in your collection. If not, add them to the number. I won't be upset. I haven't looked at them in years, but I know they're better in your collection than in mine. So,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
of course, do you have any idea? Do you have a guesstimate of when you think you're going to hit that 1 million?
Uh, I really wanted it to fall this summer, around the Nationals in Rosemont, which is Chicago. But I'm still 100,000 away. Probably not going to happen. We're just over 2 months away. Um, Next year the Nationals in Cleveland, and I'm like, well, hey, that's where the Cubs won the World Series. That's kind of a nice tie-in. But I think it's going to probably happen. I'm probably going to split the uprights on Nationals, and it's probably going to happen sometime between July 2023 and July 2024. Maybe split it right in the middle, January of 2024. The reason I want it to fall at the Nationals because I want to celebrate the 1 millionth card with kind of a token 1 millionth card, a big chase card. I'm looking at probably a Cap Anson original Allen and Ginter or Old Judge, something like that. That's a real big card to make it special. Something that you're likely only to find at a gigantic card show like a national. So that's kind of why I wanted to time it around one of those shows. But we'll see. Maybe it will come next year, or maybe all of a sudden I'll get a wave of packages in the next 2 months. I
Yeah,
don't know.
hopefully. And I mean, I know you're always tweeting out, but if you could, for the viewers we get on the channel, could you shout out your Twitter? And you've said already, 1,000 for 1,000 or 100 for 100 is how you typically do it. You don't buy, you typically trade. If you could, just give the people basically what you do and then the Twitter that they could hit you at, that'd be great.
Yeah, my Twitter is at 1 million Cubs. Most of my socials are all at 1 million Cubs. I'm most active on Twitter. I'm on Instagram at 1 million Cubs. I have a YouTube channel, 1 million Cubs Project, Facebook, 1 million Cubs Project, and then 1millioncubs.com is the website
And there you
that I
go.
rarely update.
I understand. I had a website at one time too for breaks, and that just caused a whole bunch of confusion. But that, guys, is it. There you go. This is an awesome project. I cannot wait to see what you honestly pick up for that million, because I was going to ask that question. I didn't know if you're going to try to do a super fractor or a one of one or something like that. But I love, that you're reaching back into the early beginnings of our pastime of baseball. And for those of you who have never heard of Old Judge or any of that, do your research. Look at how far we've come from black and white photos that now are creased and have rounded corners to the shiny, glossy stuff we have today. It's very fascinating to see where we've come from. But unless you have anything else to add, I'm out of questions.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.